News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are back. It is the unofficial 40 podcast on Soonerscoop.com podcast. The whole gang is here. Bob's got emergency daddy daycare business today, so we're going to start out talking a little softball, a little baseball, as both teams out to a hot start. Of course, nobody as hot in sports as OU women's softball, but welcome in, gentlemen. Josh, it was a fantastic recruiting report by you, specifically yesterday, just for giving me credit for stuff, which Eddie never does. So I appreciate
it was
at least somebody
credit for you fighting your worst urges. So I don't know. It's kind of a backhanded compliment, but I know you'll take it where you
yeah, that's not true. Eddie gave me
good.
plenty of credit for news, but I'm not. We don't have to sit here and play this game. I know I'm an asshole. I'm trying to be less of an asshole. So, it's working so far.
I like I said, I meant it. Like when I said it out, because as soon as we kind of saw that, I knew that you and some others maybe had a little more insight. And I was like, oh, this could go real bad real fast, and it didn't. It was just like, here's what we know. Like it was a nice deflection from and again, I'm not shaming you because we've all gotten into shit. It's not just you by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, you like to go after people. Make no mistake.
100%.
Josh
I own that fully.
He's the biggest subtweeter in this office.
Yes.
In these studios.
I would
That's
agree
a
with
fact.
this one. Yes,
And the biggest
absolutely.
meme sub-memer. You're a sub-memer as well.
Oh yeah, I enjoy those a lot. I like a little little subtext in what I'm doing.
Did you sleep with Bobby Adal or whatever her name is, Josh? You're a married man. She's barely sleeping with everyone.
I don't know who that is.
I
don't know anything about this.
You know what I'm talking about?
I saw it trending. I've never heard the same in my life, but it's everywhere on my
It's
Twitter
not often
feed.
when I get to educate Eddie on who somebody is in pop culture.
I don't know who she is.
I was
know
just
she
acting like I didn't know who that
leaks.
was. I knew who it was.
But we did find out a rapper yesterday who is just an idiot, or a hip hop artist. That this whole world is just anyway. Lots to get to on the stickball stuff. We're gonna actually do a stickball show coming up, and I'll say this: I hate how we always get down the NIL rabbit hole, but we've kind of done that with the staff changes. And so, we'll talk about that a little bit later when George joins us. But I think the main thing with all it hasn't been that big of a deal because I think most people still just don't want to hear about NIL. They just want to watch their football, and they hate the fact of players getting paid. And I kind of found that out this morning on the radio show because we had to talk about what was going on, and it just became like this. They should have to pay for their scholarships if they're getting money on the side.
I mean, if that's the take right now, you're so far behind. Like that almost makes me more angry to hear something like that.
So many people said that, Eddie. It's like,
well, you gotta wake up. We're way past that. They're not going back on the NIL stuff.
Yeah.
It's part of the world.
Here's the thing, and I was thinking about this morning. Like, if they just use the term endorsements instead of NIL, then it makes the whole thing seem less weird to everybody. They can understand, like,
they know that term.
Yeah,
they understand that term.
People understand endorsements.
I think that people understand the NIL stuff. They just don't like the fact that these are
paid.
college kids and they're probably going to be pocketing more money than a lot of people are. Like, that's what it is. It comes down to that. And I get the idea of, like, what has happened in college football. I don't necessarily like it, but I don't get the sense that it's turning back anytime soon.
I mean, look at it this way. College football departments across the country are changing the way they operate because of this. I mean, that's what OU is going through right now. So we can get more into that. I want to talk to Bob while he's here because and Eddie's going to be here the whole time. But Bob, softball is off and running. I know men's basketball, probably a nice distraction right
It's
now.
so weird to go from one to the other. It really is.
Like this, and I mean, it's not a look.
It's not a shot at Porter. It's not a shot at Bet.
I mean,
but it's
not, and I have to keep reminding people like this basketball team has improved dramatically over last year. Like now, if they don't make it to the tournament, then you're sitting there and you're saying it didn't matter how much they improved because they didn't make it to the tournament.
It would have been. It's an all-time.
It's a failure. Yeah,
if they can't make the tournament, I think it's something I've said a lot in the last few days. I'm going to keep saying it. You get to 20 wins and you're in. You don't have to worry about it.
I'm not going to lie. There was a piece of me last night that was rooting for Baylor against BYU just so I could come in here today and say, see, BYU wasn't any good either.
14 threes later, they got their ass
Holy
whooped.
shit, they
BYU's
ran
good.
away from that.
But if they don't make any shots, they're not a very. I mean, it's just like everybody
It's
else.
just like
in the country.
anybody
But
else.
OU's a
make
tough
four-
matchup for them because they actually do play defense.
Who?
OU does.
3-point
against,
defense
against
too.
BYU.
Against three,
Yeah.
and it's 3-point defense.
they
where
do.
OU does.
I think they
very
get
good
run
job.
out of the gym in Provo.
Yes, but they would play Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean,
if anything.
wait till they go to Iowa State. That's when we're really going to see this thing just crash hard. I think.
I mean, it might be Saturday.
Oh no!
Oh no, it crashes hard if it goes. If they go down Saturday, it crashes hard.
Yeah, it's you get
Talking
to
about
20,
Bedlam.
you're in, and you're comfortably in. You're not even worrying about the last 4 buys or going to Dayton or anything like that. You got to get to 20 one way or another.
And it has to be Bedlam. I mean, I can't count up that many
I mean,
other wins.
if you lose Bedlam, you're gonna have to either win at Texas or beat someone like Houston. So if you hope it's Bedlam and Cincinnati.
Houston is probably the worst matchup for them in the conference because they're so physical.
It's going to be tough. That's going to be unless Houston is like, well, we've got the 1 seed locked up. We don't. But I think they'll be fighting for the conference title, so I don't think they'll have that attitude because them and Iowa State would just be going back and forth the entire way the next 3 weeks. So I don't think you'll get that gift of an emotional letdown where they don't care what happens. So
What if Houston comes into that game and their whole goal is do not let Sam Godwin get a rebound, an offensive
Then
rebound?
I mean, I think that will be there.
they'll be able
you
to
don't
do
really
that.
have to
No,
do
but I
a
mean,
whole
I can
lot.
see Kelvin sitting there in practice this week with a bubble. You know, just well, they're not playing this week, but when they do, it does come down to it. They're like, he's gonna be. I don't want Sam Godwin to have a single damn rebound in this game. And like, it could get really ugly for him. What's Hughley's deal? Do we have any update there?
I mean, obviously they sound more optimistic about Rivaldo Soares coming back compared to Hughley, and that even just goes back to just being there Saturday and Soares going through warm-ups and trying to give it a go.
At least just walking around in a boot.
And then Porter acknowledging he was at 50 to 60%. So hopefully, by the time we get to them Friday, I think Soares will play Saturday. I'm not as hopeful Hughley, but I'm also think you need Soares more than Hughley. So if only one of the two can come back, you want Waldo to come back.
I will say this. I think Soares, what he taught us by being out is that these guards for Oklahoma have just taken a massive dump, basically. I mean, just not to be able to run an offense or score. It was so painfully obvious without Soares out there. I mean, Owe is just a shell of a person.
He's reverted back to his freshman ways of just being a bull in a china shop, as Porter always said it during summer, where he just runs into the lane.
He's lost all his confidence
just hopes.
taking deep shots.
Yes, it's very strange to see what's going on there.
So it was just bad. I mean, and
It was awful.
it was
Second half
you
was terrible.
Guys, you had to shoot it. You had to sit there. I mean, I was at home and I just desperately wanted to turn it. I mean,
4 field
Four
goals.
field goals
Four
in the
field
second
goals.
half.
1 for 11 from 3. And I think the crazy part about it, too, is they, for the
It was
most
still
part, outside
winnable.
of the last 2 minutes
Yes,
of the
it
first
was-
half, they played really well in the first half.
It
They
was
shot the ball well.
Inspired effort
Yeah.
in the first half until it was 34-23 and then 34-29 at halftime. And then they just couldn't get anything going.
The 6-0 run right before halftime really
Yes.
kind of
Oh,
it
God.
changed the
Yeah.
which
complexion
included
of the game.
a wide open missed layup by Lowe. So it's like, you can't do that when you're trying to win a game like this.
and the
Yep.
thing is, I know he's better. I know Los is a
Yes.
better player. I don't know if Javian McCollum's a better player. He does not have the physical stature.
He doesn't have, and he
To-
doesn't have
to
the confidence
drive-
now.
yeah, I mean,
because now he's just shooting threes. You look at his field goal.
Well, he missed so many drives to the bucket,
Yeah.
before that game.
He's
I mean,
just like he's 3 of 6 from the floor. He's 3 of 6 from 3. Like that's all he's starting to become here.
Couldn't get
lately.
around DeJuan Harris.
and
Yeah.
it's he's gonna have to figure it out, and the whole team has to. That's why this week finally getting the bye. But I'm in Kansas, where the last two teams, and
They needed it.
as Bill Self said Saturday, we would look like two tired teams just trying to play competent basketball Saturday.
And nobody's more tired than Godwin.
Yes, so hopefully this week, I asked Porter Saturday about how he was going to use it, but he didn't actually tell me. I was wondering, how many days off are you giving? How are you managing the practice load and trying to stay sharp, but definitely realizing that the majority of these guys need a break as fast as humanly possible.
I mean, there's no all-star break, so, I mean, you got 2 weeks of this thing left, and you got to get in the... I phrased it this way when I was doing the story, like, they're trying to stay in the tournament. I don't even know if you can say that right now.
Yeah, they're in.
They're in. They're not
I
even...
think they're trying to stay in the tournament, but, like, they're either going to stay in or play themselves out.
Yes.
And
Those would be the two options.
Yeah.
Are they playing themselves out more than... I feel like this is one of those ESPN topics that JJ Redick got mad at.
The good thing for them is every loss in conference play outside of Saturday, you don't really get banged for it too bad.
Yeah, I mean...
But if they start adding
But you have
up...
to admit, this team feels like a team that's falling out of the tournament more than they are, keeping themselves in.
Yes,
and Saturday will decide it.
Yes and no. I mean, I just think that, like, when you look at the bigger picture of everything that's happening within the NCAA tournament, you start looking at, like, the bubble teams, the actual teams that are on the bubble.
You have to line everybody
Oklahoma's
up and say,
resume, for what it is leaps and bounds better than what that resume is.
Yeah, like you got Providence hanging around there, and you're like, oh yeah, OU destroyed that Providence team in December.
Now you're at the point too where it's like Providence is a perfect example of, do you want them to win or do you want them to lose? So that bumps another team off the bubble.
I thought, like, last night they got a gift for once. With Iowa beating Michigan State, Arkansas beat the Aggies. Like,
Michigan State.
Here's a couple teams that we've talked about. We need those wins to look better for the Sooners. But yeah, they're a consensus 7 or 8 seed.
Yeah.
When you look across the board, 7 or 8, and if they're the 8. They're like the first number 8. They're right there at the 7 line. And if you win at Stillwater, I think you get back to the 7 line. And there's just that Iowa State win again. It just resonates more and more. And the way that they played against Houston
resonates, or is it almost like, holy shit? How did that happen? It's crazy. Providence plays Xavier tonight.
Yes.
I think that you want Providence to win to continue to build that quad 1 victory, but at the same time, you could look up, and if Providence goes on a run in the Big East, all of a sudden, are you battling
that's
against?
Taking you away.
Right, like it's crazy, and then it's also crazy too to watch a bunch of Mountain West basketball, and to think that, like, right now OU would be somewhat on a same level playing field or playing with New Mexico, who I think is probably a better basketball team than Oklahoma. I don't know. It's just crazy how it all kind of works out in the net rating and Ken Palm and that kind of stuff.
And the toughest thing, and we've said it all conference year about OU, is with the inconsistency is when you see the good of BYU in the second half against the bad of the second half against Kansas. It's so hard to get a real gauge as to what, like, this team should be getting better, but it's not. But then it has moments where it plays really, really well.
Yeah.
So how do you judge them at this point?
And the Big 12 is just insane because you look at, like, net rating this morning, TCU, Texas, Cincinnati, and Oklahoma. That's 37, 38, 39, 40. Everybody is separated in this conference. It seems like outside of Houston, who I think is far and away better than everybody else, Iowa State, and then everybody else might be in the same tier. Even in Oklahoma State, who's playing a little bit better here over the last couple weeks.
I mean, it's probably not fair to say, and we're going to move on to other things after this, but is Oklahoma the most confusing team in the Big 12?
No.
Or is it Kansas State?
TCU.
Yeah.
TCU.
I think it's TCU.
I thought TCU a month ago. I thought TCU was one of those teams that had a senior-laden backcourt. They have enough tools up front that you can go and basically match up with anybody. And they just go through spells where they look awful. Like last 8 minutes of last night's game, they're up 9, I think, with 6 minutes left. And as soon as Tech tied the game up, it was over.
Somebody
they weren't going to win
needs to do a deep dive into heavy transfer teams about, do they play a certain way? Because TCU has 10 transfers.
Yeah.
OU, I mean, the bulk of their roster is transfers.
I think everywhere's like that, though, because Micah Peavy is technically a transfer, but he's been in Fort Worth for 3 years now. I know what you're saying, though. It is very interesting. And then you have a team that basically has no transfers, like a St. Mary's, who I think is really good.
Yeah.
You mentioned the conference. Well, Cougars lose Stillwater, come back, beat Baylor, and even though they lose to OSU, they didn't get docked. They're still top 10 in the net. It's like there's nothing BYU can do to fall out of the net's good graces. Hey, which helps the Sooners.
All right, this segment brought to you by Enjoy Vision, our fresh perspective look around.
I do think Illinois is really, really good. I think they're about to go on a run, Bob.
Yes.
Coleman Hawkins is awesome.
They don't have what was the guy's name that everybody pronounced weird? The big guy at Illinois.
Oh,
Colburn?
No, yeah.
Cockburn.
From a couple years ago?
Looked
Whatever,
like Cockburn. Yeah.
The one that Porter beat?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I mean,
That
actually, I like to refer to that as the one where the Groves fooled us into thinking that they were good. Or no, that was Eastern Washington. What am I thinking? Yeah. That wasn't Porter. Porter had an even worse looking big guy.
No, Cameron Krutwig. He's a king.
Krutwig.
Yeah.
He was a king on the Final Four team.
All right. Enjoy Vision, fresh perspective, look around. Eddie, I mean, he needs the vision, folks, because he is watching so much basketball. I mean,
it's that time of the year.
Top of the Mountain West.
It's that time of the year. And honestly, because of Enjoy Vision, last night I was able to pick Creighton straight up money line winner.
Wow,
Enjoy
nice.
Vision is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City. It's not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing for me. What they're doing for the unofficial 40 listener is they're giving $400 off of LASIK. All you got to do is go to enjoywithme.com. That is the letter N, J-O-Y, withme.com. Use promo code U40 for $400 off LASIK. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
All right, softball. They're softball. I mean,
They're softball, and that's actually a problem for Patty
because she doesn't have anything
Tuesday.
to.
It's like, where can I motivate this team? I was like, how can we help them to get better?
Oh, Patty, I'm sorry for all your first world problems.
3 rings. It's just like we're not playing at the level that we need to in the first 2 weeks. Is basically her message from last night. We've got to figure it out. We got to get better. And it's not about the results. It's about the process of how we're getting there. And I'm hoping that, she said, hoping last weekend was the wake-up call. And she actually said it was on her to, instead of sitting back and watching practice, she got more vocal again. She was really coaching the team hard yesterday at practice. And it felt good for her. And so I hope the team responds in a positive way too.
Coach, you've won 62 games in a row. Can you take it easy? It's incredible the way that they've been able to just, I mean, we've now passed a full calendar year this past week that they haven't lost a softball game. It really is crazy to me that, not crazy, I think it's almost a little bit like the 17, 18, 19 offenses that we just talk about it like it's a very normal thing when in reality they're on a run that may not be comparable to a lot of like modern day streaks in college athletics. It's insane.
And it's insane how many newcomers she's getting involved.
Yeah.
Getting S.J. Guerin out there last weekend. Now you've just seen all 6 pitchers, and that's going to be something that I don't know how opponents are going to be able to scout or prepare for OU. If Patty has faith in all 6 at any given moment, just throw them out there.
There were so many teams that, not on the pitching side, but they would throw a different pitcher every inning against Oklahoma. And by the end of the season, that kind of stopped working because they got used to it. I think Iowa State was the first team that tried that. And was it Oklahoma State the last team to beat them?
Who?
OU in softball.
Baylor. It was in the Baylor tournament. It wasn't a conference.
That's right.
It was the Baylor tournament.
Okay. I was thinking that must have been the year before in the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so tell me about the 6 pitchers. I mean, we know about Kelly Maxwell, the big name, but is there anybody that you watch pitch so far that you're just like, oh, well, that could be a difference maker?
I think Carly Keeney has the potential to be someone that they can really lean on a lot. You love Maxwell, Nicole May. That's your 1A and your 1B. And then it's just about who's going to be good in a situationally based setting. because there's so many of these pitchers, and Maxwell and Keeney are two of them that are used to being the workhorse. They're used to being the starter and going 200, 250 innings per season and just laying it all out there. Now you don't have to. So that's a change in mindset.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you this about because last year, you had Jordy Ball, you had Pace Rocco, and damn it, I always forget her name, the third pitcher, Nicole May. I thought Nicole May's biggest issue a year ago was that she just didn't really have an out pitch. You could we all know Jordy Ball had an out pitch. And then Storako would kind of come in, and she had an out pitch. But, Nicole May, I feel she didn't give up a lot of runs, but, when the one time she came in late in the season, she kind of got lit up a little bit because, against really good teams, she just doesn't have that pitch that has that been talked about? Has she been working on anything? Is that a
I think that's one of the bigger questions is this staff gets you to late May with ease, but who becomes the Jordy Ball in Oklahoma City where they knew they needed a win and they used her all 5 games, said, take us home, bring us the championship. Will Kelly or Nicole get to that point where their confidence is so high and their stuff is so good that no other team can even touch them when it comes to the games that matter the most?
The biggest question right now, though, is the stinking field going to be ready? Love's Field opens up March 1st. They've sent out some videos. They planted the grass. It's going to take, hopefully, but it's still going to look like a construction site even on March 1st. I don't think there's any way of avoiding that the way it looks right now.
Yeah, even Patty talked about it yesterday. Knocking on wood, we'll be ready to go on March 1st. And then, like we've said before, they won't get to fully get into that stadium until mid-April is when Patty believes they'll finally be able to actually call that home. So I don't know what's going to look like next Friday. I do know we're getting a gift. The weather looks like it's going to be mid-60s and sunny next Friday, so it should be a beautiful weekend to bust it out open. But it's going to be curious to sort of just watch it day by day. I know we're all sort of driving by and seeing what the progress will look like. I don't know what parking is. I think people will be parking at Lloyd Noble and walking over.
It looks like from the aerial shot I've seen, there's basically we were talking about this in the office, I think yesterday. There's one point of entry almost, it looks like.
It does look like that.
So it might take you a while to get in, to get out of there.
Yes, that's
and what
Friday.
do they do? Do they go warm up at Marita Hines and then then have a bus drive them over and just drop them off?
I think you would just walk. if you've been close enough, you would. I don't want to say you want a security-led walk, but I feel like that's actually a question that I have for next Tuesday when we talk with Patty and we're actually getting into Love's Field being open. How are they handling the game prep and how's that all going to work out until they're fully actually in that locker room?
Do you have a place to store softballs?
Yeah, exactly. It's a valid question.
Things,
yes, it is.
So, but that's what is coming up before the home opener of interest.
Mary Nutter
this weekend.
But it's strange. I don't know if you want to say that they got the easy draw, but it's not like you didn't get Tennessee. You get the Bruins, although the Bruins might be down this year. Their toughest game is probably the first one. It's in Mississippi State. It's at 7:30 Friday night. But if you get through that, they play Wisconsin at 10 o'clock at night, so that's a really late one here on Friday. But the rest of the weekend looks pretty doable if they can get by the Bulldogs, who are creeping in. I think they're number 25 in some of the polls, and they've got a nice resume, but it's nothing that is scary. It's not like a top 5 Tennessee team or anything like that. So,
Sam Ricketts, head coach at Mississippi State, right?
Yeah, and that's something that Patty's excited about. She loves seeing the former players become coaches, but she also is like, I've got to beat them. They don't get to have bragging rights against me.
You're literally
had that
looking
with Utah last year.
Yeah, with the DJ.
Yeah,
he's over at Arkansas now, right? They might not lose. They
might not even have a threat of a loss until Texas.
Yeah, which is April 5th.
April. Yep.
Maybe
insane.
not shocking, but it is interesting. Just softball in general that Oklahoma State's already lost 2 games, even though it's a Georgia and LSU.
Georgia might be 3 at this point. It feels pretty.
They
like
score a lot of runs.
OU's 1, Texas a 2, Georgia's 3.
I know that we've talked about it before, but the SEC and softball is going to be incredible. Like with number 1 and number 2 coming into the conference to join Florida, who's I guess extremely young this year. That was a good win for Oklahoma State, and just being able to schedule that game on Monday after getting rained out in Clearwater over the weekend.
Yeah, but it's you want to see some competition. I mean, you've seen 3 national championships. You just don't want people rolling over. I mean, you want to see some competition, and yeah, that's good. All right, baseball. I know we're going to try and do a little bit of a stickball show tomorrow, but we can talk a little bit about the weekend action. You were down there.
I
saw
went
the
down
Oregon
on Friday.
game, I believe.
Yeah, I went down on Friday when they lost, but I mean the response to come back and beat Tennessee in extra innings, and then scratch out a win on Sunday against Nebraska, it was tremendous. And I think that it obviously walking out of there 2-1 as opposed to anything else felt like kind of a big win. But I think some of the arms that we saw over the course of the weekend, very promising. Not too worried about the offense. That'll come together. Saw little blurts of it last night down in Dallas. But they're going to lose some games like that. You got to find out who you have in terms of some of these pitchers that are new to the program right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it just seemed like everyone was talking about the arms on Friday.
Yeah, they were incredible. All weekend they were incredible.
Weekend, yes.
But the Witherspoon twins and what they brought, I mean, 95, 96 mile per hour fastballs, really good depths on sliders and curveballs. They looked extremely good, and I don't think it would be a surprise to see Kyson Witherspoon, the kid that pitched Saturday night against Tennessee. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ends up being the midweek starter. We'll see, though. I thought the Grant Stevens kid was good last night. He's going to be really good against left-handed batters. Probably not so much because he doesn't throw incredibly hard against right-handed batters. So I don't know. It's a very much a work in progress. They got the Jacob Golston kid in last night, and he lasted for 4 pitches. Couldn't find anything of the strike zone, but I mean, he's their prized recruit from the recruiting class, and being able to just get him to campus, he would have gone a lot higher than the 17th round had he, basically told teams that he would sign. So,
how about new faces at the plate?
It's been pretty interesting. I think out of all the new guys, Michael Snyder's been fantastic. He's been playing third base. But last night he had a home run. He had the first home run there in the 7th inning before Jackson Nicholas tied the game up with his 3-run homer. A solo home run. It will be interesting to see how they get some of these guys at bats here moving forward, because you have a bunch of guys that you have returned. You want to get somebody like a Jackson Willits as many at bats as possible, but at the same time, Anthony McKenzie's coming back. So where does he fit into the grand scheme of things? If you want to like DH Carter Frederick, are you worried about things behind the plate with Easton Carmichael? Although the Mulder kid wasn't incredible last night, they have a lot of guys for only 9 positions, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it's going to be really interesting to see, if Kendall Pettis or somebody continues to have a slow start offensively. You're not going to take him out of the outfield. You're not going to take him out of left field. So where does Carter Frederick land in the thing? It's going to be really interesting to see how they put these lineups together over the next, I'd say, month.
Okay. As I said, we're going to have a stickball show on the YouTube channel, Sooner Scoop, just youtube.com/Sooner Scoop. So we'll get more into the weeds there with the baseball program. I know Bob's got to get out. He's got a sick kiddo on the way, so we'll bring in George and talk a little bit of everything going on with the athletic department right now, football program. Josh is here. We'll get in some recruiting as well. Big junior day coming up, and obviously, we had the recruiting report yesterday, so we'll catch up with Josh here in just a moment. All right, I want to tell you about something new at Sooner Scoop, and it is Factor. Factor has delicious, ready-to-eat meals that makes eating better every day and makes it easier for you. We've talked about that with some of our great sponsors in the past, but now Factor is here to let you know about the service they provide. George and I are both on the meal plans. I got like the calorie conscious one. George, you got like the chef's special or something, I think it's called.
Yeah, chef's choice. Look, if you don't want, or if you're worried about your girlfriend burning their house down, this is what you go for. You go to Factor. You can get 50% off right now using the code Sooners50. 2-minute meals. So it's already pre-made. You put it in the microwave and it's already cooked for you. So really good food, healthy. You can get
the protein if you want to bulk up like George.
You can get keto if you're trying to lose weight. There's a bunch of different options, but the food's really good. And again, like I said, if you don't want to cook, this is the way to go.
So great for guys, really great for anybody, but to get as much or as little as you need, choose 6 to 18 meals per week. Plus, you can pause and reschedule your deliveries, which is great because I know Eddie and I have been on meal plans, and it's like they just keep sending it, and then you call, it's a pain in the ass to cancel it. You got to talk to somebody live. Sounds familiar. I know somebody's going to find that funny out there. So, yeah, you can just pause it. You can call them, pause it, say, hey, my freezer is full because – like maybe you go out to eat more one month or another. So they make it very simple. It's no prep, no mess. But here's the important thing. Head to factormeals.com/Sooners50 and use the code Sooners50 to get 50% off. That's code Sooners50 at factormeals.com/Sooners50 and you'll get 50% off. Just use that promo code. One more time, factormeals.com/Sooners50 and use code Sooners50 to get 50% off. So appreciate you guys always supporting our sponsors. Hope you'll do it again with Factor. And George and I will be back to report on our latest meals next week. All right, we are back. George joining us on the podcast now. And did you miss the hoops talk?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody wants my hoops opinions. I kind of got into it with a lot of people on Twitter on Saturday.
You pretty much said Sooner basketball is dead to me.
Well, it's not dead to me. I just think that people are raising the expectations of a program that it's historically. Look, I mean, the last 20 years, this is not. Let's not pretend like this is some elite basketball program.
Let's not do this on the heels of the Billy Tubb.
I know. Look, and Billy Tubbs was great, and Kelvin Sampson's going to get his shine when he comes to town. But the reality of the program is they should make the tournament, and every few years they should make a run in the tournament, and right now they're on pace to do that this year, and that's great. That's A-okay. I just think that people, there's people in my mentions that were like, they should make the Sweet 16 every year, and that this is a top 20 basketball.
Condescendingly.
Well,
A-okay.
Well, I mean, it's just, I just don't understand when they lose at home to a good basketball program like Kansas. Everybody gets all up in arms. They had two guys.
Because everybody's beat Kansas at their place. I mean,
get
they're not
that,
a good
but
road team, and they were winning at halftime, and then they played like shit in the second half.
But what have these fans watched the last few weeks that told them anything that they were going to beat Kansas on Saturday? Like it wasn't going to happen, and they need to go win Saturday.
More than 4 field goals, it could have happened.
Yeah, but they didn't. They did not do that.
I know, but they played a lot better in the first half. I think it was just
but they still
gut punch of the way that they played.
And that's how they play every week.
Not really.
Pretty close. I mean, it's Eddie.
I'm not saying that I think Oklahoma is a top 20 or top 15 program of all time. I don't really give a but they need to be better than what they are.
I agree,
and I think that they are better.
I don't know about that. I don't think there's any evidence since the Buddy Hield year that they are anything better than what they've been. They've won like
what do you mean?
Like the
You're
program.
saying that there's just a mediocre program.
It's a mediocre program.
I think to a certain extent. I don't think I agree with that. I think it's a moderate program that is supported mediocrely. How about that?
Yes, yeah, I would agree with that.
And fan support doesn't win you. Fan support doesn't win you games.
Well, it's not fan support. I think it's administration support.
I would.
There's been I think it's fair to be critical of the administration from the standpoint that they have put OU basketball on the back burner for forever.
Completely fair.
Yep.
Completely fair.
And that's why I said that they're not a top 20 program. So stop acting like they're a top 20 program. Everybody needs to stop acting like a top 20 program.
I don't even know. Ooh, sorry. I don't even know what goes into like the making. Like I always hate the top 20 conversation or who's the GOAT, all that kind of stuff. It's like you're never gonna back off of what you feel like is the stance should be. So it's like a never-ending cycle of argument. But it needs to be better. It could be better. I think it is probably a little bit better than we think because they haven't played well over the last month. But then again, you look across the rest of the country and there's a lot of just kind of middling. Like I said it last week, and I still feel like this, and I might even expand it a little bit more. I think from about 6 or 7 to about 45 in the country. I don't think that there's a big gap between those teams.
I would agree with that.
Like, and I think that to a certain extent, that's probably why college basketball just isn't a completely great product overall. Like, you turn on whatever game tonight, you want to watch Illinois, Penn State. It's not going to be an exactly sexy watching basketball experience, but at the same time, I think that all of these teams are just lumped together, and when you don't go out and you don't get a defensive rebound, or you don't make a bunch of shots, or you go on these 6-minute scoring droughts, it's going to look really, really bad.
Here's I mean, just one quick.
I don't think you're like completely wrong.
I don't want to get into big argument, but basketball tears us apart, man. But how about this for a stat? Since Dave Bliss coached here in 1980, this was before people cut people's heads off. Starting with Billy Tubbs.
That was just a shooting, I think.
Every coach, besides one, has made it to a Final Four, and the other one made it to an Elite Eight.
At Oklahoma. Yeah.
So Porter Moser, if he doesn't go to an Elite Eight or a Final Four, he'll be Elite Eight. He'll be the only coach that hasn't done it since 1980.
He needs to make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
People need to realize, though, like, and this is what I was trying to say, is that, I mean, everybody's shitting on Porter, and some of it is somewhat justified. But
Porter is playing in the same arena that Dave Bliss coached in, or he's coaching in the same arena that Dave Bliss coached in 41 years ago.
Let's also not forget it took Kelvin Sampson 5 years to win an NCAA tournament game in Oklahoma. Let's not forget, like, I just, my point wasn't to just shit on the OU basketball program. It was to say, hey, let's stop raising the bar that, like, they need to go and, like, win all these games against top 10 teams in the toughest conference in basketball. Like, I just don't. I think the expectations from the fans are way too high sometimes.
I also don't think that, like, the answer is to fire Porter Moser quite yet. I don't think that I think it would be a bad thing if Porter Moser went on to somewhere else. I think it would say more about the state of the program than anything about Porter Moser. I think he's a good basketball coach. They have to figure out a way to continue to build momentum, though. And I think the most frustrating thing, and especially this year, is it seems like every time that they have built a little bit of momentum, and maybe it
comes crashing down.
It comes crashing down, and a lot of it's come at home.
Here's the problem.
Come at home.
And I don't want to just, like, call out the fan base, but you've got a bunch of football and softball fans watching the basketball team with these higher expectations for the program that are just not realistic right now.
But it's been that way from the dawn of time.
No, I know. I mean, I'm just saying that's the issue. Like,
it's a double-edged sword too, because it's a good thing if you're really good, because they're going to be passionate, they're going to be supportive, they're going to show up every night in, night out.
And you know what football and softball show you? Is that if you spend a lot of money on a sport, you can get results.
Correct. And that's, again, my whole point was the administration needs to spend more money on basketball. They've put it on the back burner for far too long.
And they're still doing it because they're trying to push off an arena on the city.
Because here was my point, is they're not a top 20 program right now, but when they have invested in it and they have had the right coaches and the right people in place, they have been a top 20 program.
And I'll say this, like, at the height of Kelvin, They were when that team was playing really well and going to Final Fours, the discussions about improving Lloyd Noble would happen.
Yeah,
that would happen. With pretty much, I think, with Lon Kruger. I mean, that came up a little bit, but it's like it just dies down and goes away, and it just stays the same. And that place is just old. I mean,
yeah. And I also would say too, like, in terms of, like, the comparison to Porter Moser or whoever to somebody like a Kelvin Sampson, the success that they enjoyed, I think it's pretty proven now. If you weren't a believer before, Kelvin Sampson's one of the best basketball coaches in the country. There's simply no doubt about that. Now, it helps when you have somebody like a Jamal Shedd that's probably the best point guard in the Big 12 and maybe one of the best point guards in the country. It certainly helps when you have really good players around you.
But he can do that. I mean, Oklahoma, it was always kind of a struggle for him to build that full team. Like, Jabari Brown was like a guy, like, people wanted him, but he was just such a crucial piece to that team. But he would go out and get, like, a Lou Moore transfer, Ryan Humphreys transfer. Like, He wasn't always just bringing in great high school classes.
And here's the other thing too with this year's team.
And now you have to do it just completely differently
Yes.
than what Kelvin did, and that's what makes
What
it
he's
almost,
doing now is the norm.
What,
Or what he
what
was
makes
doing then
it
is now the norm.
most impressive is that he's been able to go out and get all those guys to join him. He's adapted to the state of what college basketball is.
Yeah.
And I think that there was, in the first couple years under Porter, a little bit of a pushback that I'm not going to do this because I don't have the NIL funding. And it hurt him. I mean, the roster now, he's done a pretty good job of having to construct it and piece it all together. But like, I know this is like pie in the sky, like glass half full. If you can continue to get development of some of these guys, you get Caden Cooper to come back, you get Jacoby Cole to be the guy that he is. The cool kid that has signed he made a massive jump in the on-3 rankings. Like, they've been able to go out and get a back-to-back classes of top 100 guys. You got to develop them. And that's where you get into the concern now of, like, and I know that we've talked about it. We talked about it with Bob. Like, I think Otega Owe's been awful as a sophomore.
He's not been good.
You've seen flashes from somebody like Los
regressed.
on. Yeah, majorly. I don't know.
Just this season, he's regressed. 'Cause
Sure.
Well, and
there was a time when everybody was like, wow, he needs to shoot it more.
Yeah, like they went in. They came out of non-conference play. He was the team's leading scorer.
Yeah. And then they also just don't have a big man. But back to this year's team in terms of, if you would have said before the season, hey, they're going to make the tournament and be a 7 seed, I think every
person, you're an idiot.
Yes.
If you
Not
turn a
knowing
blind eye to that.
who this team was going to even
Correct.
have on it.
They were picked 14th in the preseason.
Yeah.
No, it's been a good season. Now they just need to make the tournament.
If things like continue to go south, maybe they
Yeah, if
They
they go
need to
lose,
lose
on
Saturday,
Saturday and they
Right.
don't win another game, then
right.
yes. But
I think Saturday's going to be extremely tough, but it's a game that OU should win, especially if you can get Rivaldo Suarez back. Crazy stat from last night. Over the last 10 years, you know how many ranked road wins UConn has? Did you guys see this?
Zero.
It's like
0
0
for
and
21.
51 or
Yeah,
something
they're
like
0 and 21 over the
21.
last 10 years,
Yeah.
and they just so happen to have won 2 national titles. It's
yeah.
crazy.
Josh, this is what happens. You tried to come in on our basketball discussion. We just ignored you.
What were you saying? I think you had a good basketball point.
He's muted now.
No, I don't know that I did. I was just going to ask because you guys were discussing a top 20 program and all that goes into that. Is Porter Moser the guy for a top 20 program? Like, if they are investing in the way that they should, or that
Can he
we
coach
feel
a team
would
that
make? Yeah, like is he the guy that's going to take you to the level you should go to if you are giving those resources? Like,
I don't think
are.
I don't think he's a bad. I mean, like I think he's a really smart basketball coach. I think what's going to be interesting is his style and the way he coaches doesn't necessarily fit the Big 12. I have no idea if it's going to fit the SEC. That's probably a better question for Eddie, but I just don't know because
it's a great question.
Because like the way they play is how Loyola Chicago played, and it fit perfectly. I mean, there was a reason they were a powerhouse in the mid majors under him. I just don't know if it works.
I think
in bigger
those
conferences.
are the types of questions that I think in a way are a little bit unanswered right now. And like, could OU go out? Like, we went down this path on one of the threads in the Crimson Corner maybe about a week ago. It's like, if you did lose Porter Moser, how sexy is the Oklahoma job? Like, who do you go out and get? And I don't think because they're a number 2 behind football, and that's the way it's always going to be, you got to get somebody that kind of understands that. I think that Porter Moser has become more comfortable with that idea, but I don't think at the same time that he took this job thinking that he was going to come in and all of a sudden OU was going to be basketball was going to be in front of football.
No, but I do think it can be like you look at Alabama. Alabama's built a great basketball program. They just announced
Nate Oates has done a really good job.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have and Nate. It's because of Nate Oates. He's done a great job at recruiting and building a program there. And they're getting a new arena. I think I saw announced this week. Like, that's what OU should strive for, is having a basketball program similar to somewhat of Alabama. And OU's had that before. They've had that. It's just, and I'm
They
sure
never built on it.
Yeah, and I'm sure Porter, when he took this job, I think there was probably some sort of an assurance that, hey, we're going to get you a new arena.
Oh, for
and
sure.
it still hasn't come through. And I'm still very skeptical at this Norman project that it's actually going to get approved.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. This is a lot of basketball.
That's a lot of basketball. So look, it's fine though. I mean, we got to talk about it. I mean, I think we all have people besides other than Josh who are all pretty passionate about OU basketball and what we've watched growing up. And
it was my freshman year. Was Buddy Hield. They made the run to the Final Four, and it was like that was the most electric.
Were you in the AP photo when he jumped up on the table?
And at Big 12, no, I wasn't. I wasn't there. I was only a freshman, so I didn't go down there. But I remember watching that game with my brother and like freaking out when he made that shot.
The greatest moment in OU basketball that never happened.
Yeah, and the call by Toby Rowland is legendary.
Yeah,
but yeah,
well,
I mean the basketball
guys,
program's fun.
I'm sorry. I know. I promise I'll weigh in less and less on basketball. But I will say part of what George was talking about, where he's saying fans are unrealistic. I think it comes from my generation, because my generation, basketball was a far better product than football. Yeah. Like, I mean, 80s, 90s, like the basketball team was the reason that the university was on Sports Center. Yeah. Because they were going to play Kansas tough. They were going to win at Ames, like all that kind of stuff. And I think now that it's my age group that's in their 40s and, and Carey's as well, like we are in that age range where like, no, we've seen OU basketball be good. That is a possibility. And I think sometimes, George, it's not that you're wrong. It's not that you're wrong that there are not the resources there to be a top 10 team like they were so often under Kelvin Sampson. But I think it's a kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because there is a feeling that like it can be better. We've seen it be better. Why isn't it better? And I think that's where you get into people not understanding the nuance of why this is a little different situation.
Yeah, I mean, OU basketball has been involved with quite a few spectacles of the sport just because of Billy. I remember, being younger and staying up late at night at my grandma's. I think my parents were on vacation. They dumped me off or something. And it was like midnight or something like that, but OU played Loyola Marymount. This was before, when Hank Gathers and was it Bo Kimball? Was that the other guy for them?
Yeah.
It was before they really blew up nationally, but everybody knew this Loyola Marymount team scores a lot of points, and they need to play Oklahoma because they're the two highest scoring teams. It was such a spectacle when those two played, and OU ended up winning easily because they were just better athletically. Overall, I mean, Loyola Marymount had two good players, and like everybody else was like bench warmers for Oklahoma. But yeah, I mean, people have lived through those periods. They've lived through Kelvin Sampson. I mean, they remember Blake Griffin. I mean, going up against North Carolina in the NCAA tournament in 2009. And there's Lon Kruger. I mean, Buddy Hield, like you mentioned, he's somebody that you look back at fondly. So yeah, I hope Porter can build that. And I hope he has a team of players that the fans fall in love with. But I hope if he does get in the tournament, starts generating excitement, that people start making a push to improve the facilities. Because in the end, when you don't show that the fans know you don't really care about basketball as a university, as an athletic department. So there's no reason for people to go through the ups and downs when they know there's not the commitment there that's needed to get the program back to where they want it to be.
Yeah, and I think that it's been somewhat they've prioritized softball the last few years, obviously, because they're winning national championships, and you look at the football projects that they want to do. I think that it's just fallen behind. But I'm going to be interested if they make the tournament. Porter has historically done really well in the tournament as a coach. You wonder if he could pull off where all of a sudden they don't have to play Big 12 teams.
I think there is a little part of that, but when you look at like just the way that they've performed in some of these games, like I don't think they're not making shots because they're in the Big 12. You know what I mean?
Well, and they also just don't have a big man, and it kills them every game. I mean, Kansas
I already went in on Sam Godwin.
Yeah, earlier. Kansas dared Sam Godwin to beat him, and he just couldn't do it.
Okay, let's move on. Let's get to recruiting, Josh, because I know a lot of excitement about upcoming things, and we can get into the staff stuff after we talk just about the go into the weeds a little bit about what's going on with Oklahoma. Let's talk about new offers, new official visits. I know a lot of players are starting to schedule those, and there's been some pretty good news, it seems, for Oklahoma, at least in getting guys interested in coming to take an official visit.
Yeah, you're starting to see even talk of the Champ U barbecue in early June, or I guess mid-June. That'll be June 21st for those that haven't kind of filed that away yet.
And let me just cut in there real quick, because now the spring game is like the jumping off point for official visits, right? Or the spring in general. Isn't it that early now? Like you can do an official visit as a junior on a spring game?
I believe you can, and I know some places do. We've not seen Brent do that so far. So, like, we'll have to wait and see. That's not really my expectation. That's something that I don't think they want to do too much, because largely, and it's what we've talked about before, they are very both deliberate and skilled at knowing when a guy is going to decide, or at least having a good window into it. And if a guy's going to decide at that point, okay, maybe they do that. But when they know most of these decisions are happening around the 4th of July, kind of in that area, they want to push those back as far as they can. And I think that's why you're seeing Champ U, when we've seen it maybe be like I think last year it was the 15th or something like that. This week you're going even a full week later into the 21st, where you're just pushing and maybe hoping you're that last visit in June before anybody makes a decision in July. So, yeah, I mean, guys, I know one, actually just talking to him a little while ago, Cortland Guillory, the cornerback from Houston, is a guy, Klein Oak, kind of North Houston area, came in for I believe it was the February 3rd junior day. He was there for one of the two early ones. He'll be back. He's going to take his official visit to the Champ U. I believe he's going to come for the spring game. So Oklahoma's trending in a very good direction with him. And I think that's what you're going to see a lot of, is Oklahoma really trying to get a lot of guys in for either a big weekend in the spring, specifically the spring game, and then kind of let that same group of guys return in June for for Champ U, and kind of, I don't know, see if you can build a little camaraderie and a little bit of connection there over those couple of weekends.
I do have I have a scenario for you. This is this is one idea I have that could change the game of football in terms of recruiting. So you can pay people now in endorsements, NIL, all that stuff. So the fear of, what's the fear? Like, here's my question. What's the fear of a fan running into a recruit while he's on campus? Like, what's going to happen there? Like, are you worried about $100 handshakes? Are you worried about, like, maybe that's still something, but these guys are going to get paid eventually. So what's wrong with, like, having a Champ U barbecue where fans get to come sit in the stands? And maybe it raises money, eventually the schools will be in charge, but maybe use that money for the event to go to NIL.
Honestly, I would think the biggest problem for them would probably be the fact that if the fans can come, we could come. And then they have to run into the whole issue. Well, yeah, I mean, and I get it, and I don't even mean to be that like, OUs have to get us. Like, because they run into
let's ruin opportunities to make money because the media. I mean, what the dumbest thing ever.
Well, you know how, I mean,
What
guys,
are fans
we
coming
talked
to
about
pay
this
for?
before on the pod.
Just like a show or whatever. Like, you get the old players up there. You do some highlight stuff. You have the current players come up and talk about their experience.
There's definitely some like crazy fans that would 1,000% pay $50 to go sit in the stands during the Champ U barbecue.
Yeah, even if they weren't doing anything.
Even
Even if they're just watching them eat.
There are some crazy people out there that I think would do that.
Is it one of those times?
I'm vaguely confident my father is among them. I think my dad might be in the stands for that event.
I bet George's dad would come.
I don't know. He's
don't know if your dad
He's
would
not
come?
as much into the recruiting. He just wants to see them win.
Because he played there, and he's not he's like, look, I played there. It's not a big deal.
Yeah,
guys, we cater to a very large fan base that they want to know everything a kid's thinking in recruiting. Like, if I can report, he's thinking about setting up a visit, that's news. Like, there's 100% people that would pay to be there and pay a fairly decent price to be a part of it. But yeah, I mean, if you
Maybe
could
it's a
make
dumb
it a whole
idea. I don't know.
spectacle-
I'm just throwing things out there against the wall.
the recruiting thing that I know we'll get into some of the OU stuff, but the thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately that I think is really interesting, I think we all know the NCAA is really close to changing this rule of there can't be any off-campus recruiting by anybody that's not one of the 10 official staff members. Like that looks like that's going to go by the wayside. I wonder if the way that you balance this.
That would be huge because the way they're going now with especially with visiting juniors right after signing day, that's after the first signing day. Like these coaches have no lives, no ability to just go home and see their families on a regular basis at this point.
Yeah, that's why you're seeing guys leave. And I mean, and guys, I know we all talk to coaches, we all hear it. And I mean, everybody has things in their job they complain about, but I think this one's pretty valid from coaches. Their time is 100% not their own right now. So I wonder if they can change this rule, they could allow, kind of like we're talking about, guys, like with the GMs, we're talking about in the recruiting report and what all that entails. If you could have actual scouts, like your guys, your personnel department going out on the road, but, Todd Bates can stay home. He doesn't have to go out on a Friday night, or he doesn't have to go through all the spring practice. He can really focus on maybe the 3 or 4 guys he wants to see because he's really dug in on those guys. But you have all the other guys going out and evaluating the sophomores and the juniors and that kind of stuff, letting them stay at home a little bit. So you build those personnel departments, you give them a purpose, and at the same time, you let your coaches have a little time to be at home, be with their families, and recharge their batteries. I feel like that could be an easy balance. And I understand you're going to pay those guys more. Like there's more that goes all the way around. But instead of those staffers just sitting there working on flyers and mail, they could be out doing evaluations. I wonder if that's how you find the life balance that these coaches kind of need.
Do you think that like all the stuff that coaches do in December when they're going out, Brent's out at Mesquite Horn and then he's out in California or wherever, as much as these guys talk anymore, is that kind of one of those things that
might be a sign of the times?
Yeah,
do
do they even need to go do, like, I know the in-home visit is kind of a tradition of sorts in recruiting. As much as these guys talk and as much as these guys can be on FaceTime or on the phone or whatever, is that just something that we're doing nowadays just to be doing
It's become a custom.
Are you getting anything out of that? Has a kid flipped because he's like, I don't like how this in-home visit went?
It still happens, but it's definitely not what it was 20 years ago, where the in-home was like everything.
Sure.
That was, they had it planned out exactly when Bob was going to come in and how he was going to close and what the pitch was going to be. And, I'm going to set you up here and then you're going to say this. And it was very orchestrated in some cases. But now, maybe 2 guys a year. Do those coaching in-homes in December really matter?
Yeah.
It's not.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I started realizing that official home visits probably weren't worth the time that coaches had to spend on it, which it still is. I mean, you have to have some type of visit, but like when Jamarcus McFarland told me that his mom decided that when Bob Stoops came on his official visit, they would sit and watch the movie Beauty Shop.
Yeah.
I was like, no, but Bob Stoops is just picturing Bob Stoops sitting in someone's home watching a 2-hour-long movie about hairdressers. I was like, he's just sitting there going, this damn recruiting shit.
Nick Saban's doing the electric slide in people's living rooms, which is awesome. Like I do think that that's kind of a fun part of college. I'm just trying to think of ways that, and it's obvious that the schedule and how it's set up, it has to change. Like coaches cannot continue to do this, or you are going to start losing more and more and more. I don't know.
You're just going to die young.
I mean, I think that, and I also think that some of these coaches that have left to go to the NFL, the writing was kind of on the wall. Yeah. I mean, they were going to get the Heffley guy up at Boston College. He was getting fired next year if they didn't win 8 games.
Yeah, the guy at Georgia, Georgia State and Georgia Southern run together on me, but the guy that went to South Carolina, he was about to get fired. They were supposed to have a good team and finish 5th in their own division. That was happening.
That's also a conversation that I think is currently happening without really actually happening, in that I'm sure that the alumni of Georgia Southern love their football team There's people that love it just as much as Oklahoma football. They're playing on a different playing field. Like, why would I for so long we thought, okay, this guy has to move up the ranks. He's going to become a position coach. Then he's going to become a coordinator. Then he's going to go off to this G5 school, be a head coach, and then you work your way up this ladder. Nowadays, it's not like that. Like, and we said it for a long time. I remember having this conversation about somebody like an Alex Grinch, which in hindsight is probably stupid, but OU defense coordinator's a better job than being the head coach at Georgia State. It just is, especially with the way, and maybe not Georgia State. It doesn't matter. That's just an example. Nowadays, when you're spending $3 million for a coordinator, you'd have to be an idiot to want to take over a program of your own. I don't know. It's just, and Chip Kelly, that whole thing's kind of interesting as well. Like, he was going to get fired at UCLA.
But it really is still, it's about, sometimes coaches, you can only coach somewhere so long. I mean, like, you always wonder, like, how long is Bob going to coach? Well, he told us. He's like, he retired. Like, 18 years, 19 years was enough for him. And now he's doing fun stuff like coaching the UFL, which he doesn't have to be involved in anything. He's just like, here's our players. They're going to show up. We're going to play. We're going to run these plays. It's just, everybody has their time. And I think Brent is young enough. He's fit enough and he's energetic enough to where none of this stuff bothers him because he'll outwork anybody if he has to. But there are a lot of guys that have been out there coaching for 15 years. They're just like, Eddie, you're one of these people. You don't like change. And there are a lot of people out there that don't like change. And when things change this much, this fast, some people are just like, shit, I'm out of here.
Oh, it's kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of the show. It's like, I don't like the idea of college football basically changing in front of our eyes over the last 5 years because of, like, at the end of the day, because of money. But I also realize that there's an argument to be made that a lot of these guys that are bringing in billions of dollars to schools, they should be able to get some type of cut out of it.
Well, and guess what? This leads into what we, it said we were going to talk about some, like, coaching staffs and athletic departments are trying to figure this out, how to make life bearable in this new system, just like, with the stuff that came out with, hiring a new, I'm forgetting the titles. You'll have to help me, George.
General manager.
No, the
recruiting coordinator?
LA or whatever.
On campus.
Yeah, on campus. Okay, so she's replacing Lee Davis. So it's really not anything different, but she's probably going to have different job duties, outside of that. But, the stuff about Curtis Lofton, and, you guys talked about it on the recruiting report yesterday. Like, he's not going to be, I think it was made out like, oh, he's going to be this czar of the OU football program. No, he's going to be an assistant general manager, and he's going to have duties, though, that, possibly, deal with all these other things, but they don't know what's possible yet. So they're trying to get the staff revamped, and they don't even know. Like, people are talking to me like, hey, once we get this all figured out, we'll tell you kind of what the structure is because we really don't know at this point. So it's like everything's in motion. Nothing is set in stone, but they just know they have to change the way that they're doing things, and they have to reset their staff to handle this new era, which it drives me insane that the NCAA just doesn't allow for coaches to broker, something with a collective or whatever. Like, at least just let coaches be involved in the discussions. If they're going to be NIL discussion,
it's the most NCAA thing of all time. Because in reality, to think that it's not happening is look, ridiculous.
I want to be fair here. There's a reason the NCAA rulebook is so big, because you make a rule and then unintended consequences happen. That's what happened with NIL. All they said was, we want players to be able to make money on their own through endorsements or autographs, or all these stuff that we've been getting criticized for, like Gabe Eichert getting extra pasta. Like, we want the ability for kids, because they're taking a hit. I mean, everybody's coming after them, the antitrust stuff. So they tried to do something nice. They tried to say, okay, and they named it something stupid, which is name, image, and likeness. They should have just said endorsements, and it would have made everybody's heads wrap around it so much easier. NIL sounds like another bylaw that makes no sense. So what happened was, they're like, okay, you're free to go out and make money on your own. But because they didn't let the coaches be involved or the athletic department, all the donors and the boosters came out and said, oh, well, why don't we just pay them a whole bunch of money and say it's NIL? And now all of a sudden you're in a pay-for-play situation all across the country, and it's all f***ed up because the NCAA didn't see that coming. And I can't really blame them, but fix it faster. Be more agile. Stop waiting for Congress to save you. And they're all doing this because they're afraid that one day the players are going to unionize. They're going to be employees. They're going to have to pay them money. There's no stopping that train.
Well, and they're now going after like a school like Tennessee that is doing something that everybody's doing.
Yeah.
Trying to make an example. What were you saying, Josh?
I was going to say I can blame them. The people. First of all, the NCAA didn't do this because they want to do something nice. They want to do this because they're going to ass kick in court, and they got sick of it.
Yeah,
like they got tired of that. So, and then secondly, I can blame them because all the alarmists that were defending the NCAA and their whole stance on it were saying this is what was going to happen, and they were right. This was exactly what was going to happen the second you allowed this to happen. If you gave it absolutely no governance, it was just like, oh, it felt like a kid throwing a tantrum. Like, okay, well, you guys wanted this. Here it is. Just deal with it. Like, no, there had to be some parameters. There had to be some guardrails.
Don't forget, they throw it out there and they leave it up to the states, and the states go and make all these rules that are so pro their universities that, like Missouri, Texas, I mean Oklahoma tried to do it, but then the IRS jumped in. But it's like, remember that the NCAA basically said, we have no rules. You guys follow your state law.
Yeah, because again, they didn't want to deal with it, and they knew any rule they made
they're going to get sued
possibly going to be contested. Exactly. So it's insane. But the general point, though, like I said, to me, you've just got to create. You can't do anything, and I think OU's smart in trying to be patient and how they do this, because with all that's going on with Virginia and Tennessee and all that stuff, you don't want to set like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get down the path, because then it's going to change in 5 minutes and you've screwed yourself and you've hired people that can't work in that particular role, and you have to reshuffle the deck again.
And guess what? The NCAA, every time they lose a lawsuit, they're going to appeal and appeal and appeal, so they have time to get their ducks in a row. It's just like the new football contract that's been released with the college football playoff. Like, okay, you have 12 teams, but now you also have the SEC and the Big Ten waiting to get their bigger cut of this deal. So is anybody going to be able to agree to that? Yeah, they know they're going to get $8 billion, for signing this new contract, but who's going to get that money? Who's actually going to be able to play in that game? And the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be like, well, we want 5 of our teams to be in and then the 7, could come from the Big 12 and the Mountain West or whatever.
Isn't that what Washington State's athletic director told Ross Dellinger this morning, or Pete Thamel, that basically the proposal was 4 from the Big Ten, 4 from the SEC, and then everybody else would fill it in after that.
Wow.
They proposed that.
Which, I don't know. Like,
that's a starting point. That's the negotiation. You offer something monstrous, and then they'll get down to maybe 5 total.
But it's not unrealistic that happens in the next few years, where there's eight total teams from the Big Ten and the SEC that make it.
I'm sorry, but you don't need 4 teams from a conference, even if it has 16 people in it. You need the top 2. You need the top 2, and maybe the top 3.
I don't think you read the forms that we got at SEC Media Day. How you're talking right now?
Yeah, I don't need a call.
I think four SEC teams would have made it this year.
Well, it just means that Georgia would have played. I mean, Alabama did,
and maybe
probably would have won the whole freaking thing.
Yeah, and they probably would have won it all. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to get left out. I think somebody's always going to get left out, whether it be 4 teams, 5's always going to be pissed.
Well, Yormark needs to stop worrying about the basketball tournament. He needs to get his ass in the room with
or their media days.
The
they're doing it in Vegas, which makes no sense to me to have it in Vegas. I mean,
I know that was announced yesterday. Was that not announced 2 months ago?
It was.
That it was going to Vegas?
Yeah. It was just the date was announced.
I gotcha.
But no, I mean, if I'm Yormark, I'm having media days like at the College Football Hall of Fame.
Well, I'm having it where there's
in Atlanta.
Some sort of. I mean, the SEC is very specific about where they have it so that fans can go and they make it a bigger event, and it's it's more professionally done. Whereas going to Vegas, I'm sure it's going to be a hell of a week for everybody in the media that we know that's going to get to go out there. But I mean, what connection does Vegas have to anybody in the Big 12?
Yeah.
There's a reason the SEC is having it in Dallas next year. It's because it's the central location for OU and Texas fans to be able to say that they can go or whatever.
Yeah, and by the way, you better get your asses to the Omni because the SEC fans that are already there, Texas A&M fans, they're going to be there in the lobby.
And they boo the shit out of the coaches as they come in. It's a spectacle.
That was one of my biggest mistakes at SEC. I didn't go down there and take that in enough.
I mean, when Nick
I went down
Saban
there
rolled in,
the day that Josh Heupel came in.
when Nick
and I
Saban
saw
came
that.
in, it was pretty awesome. I mean, a bunch of Alabama fans and just
Georgia
old
fans.
women yelling "Roll Tide." It was awesome.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just, look, back to the original point, what's happening with the staff is, it's in flux, but it's going to be geared more toward when things eventually shake out.
Well, I think the point, and I said this yesterday on our YouTube show, is that OU and other programs are doing things to free up their coaching staff to be able to just be football coaches. And that's not to say that Brent's not going to be involved in other sorts of the program and what all goes on in NIL and whatever else is going on in the transfer portal. But by having somebody like a Curtis Lofton or Woody Glass or whoever take some of these other duties away, it allows Brent and the other coaches to just focus on the football part of this.
Well, and, Woody's around Brent all day, every day. So he's going to know Brent's philosophy on, I believe in paying this guy this much, or I don't want a guy in the locker room that's paying this.
Woody's not going to all of a sudden be the guy breaking down all the tape and being like, we got to get this guy.
No.
Like, I mean, that's not what's happening here.
He'll be more of an administrator, like overlooking the entire department. And like you said, this really is, and people have told me this from the beginning, they wanted to free up Brent. And I mean, when he got rid of Ted Roof, that was when the plan had started to come together. And he was not happy from what I'm told about the Thad thing. And that was, I think it was the best thing that could have happened, just judging from what I've heard from other people in dealings with Thad. I think Thad and Brent had a really special relationship, and they were the only two that had a really good relationship with that. So I think now it's a restructuring of the entire department. Woody's up there in charge, of making sure that all runs smoothly and happens, and it's a division basically. And then
Curtis is going to play a big role.
And Curtis will play a big role. He's not heading it up, but he's going to play. And I'm sure he will lean more towards the personnel part of it.
Yeah.
I think there's some things where they have a system in place about how they want NIL to work. He'll enforce that. They'll have, basically not like negotiating, but their philosophy on how they deal with NIL, who makes what, and
I think
all that stuff.
he's a good person for that because he played in the NFL for so long, and again, you're seeing college football kind of not necessarily totally turn into the NFL, but in terms of dealing with agents and money and evaluations. I mean, Curtis is very connected. Like he can understand and grasp that stuff better than a lot of people.
I've been told this too. Like he meets with the players individually and talks finances with them all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's a very smart individual. So
he's been a very good investor with his money in the
And
NFL.
I think to have somebody in that position too, you want somebody that understands the university and the expectations at a place like Oklahoma. And I don't think there's anybody that understands that more than Curtis. And he also understands the expectations of Brent. I mean, he played for Brent.
Yeah.
They're very close. And I think that he makes all the sense in the world to be put in a very important position.
Yeah, I think it's just, it's one of those things. It's been so much work to get where they are. I hope this is successful for Brent. I mean, they've got to go to the SEC now, and they've got to put up 9 wins probably for it to be satisfactory.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a lot of stuff to think about, in terms of that's really the first time I've even said anything out loud about expectations in the SEC. I don't even know if I was right. I mean, like,
what do we think of
thought that deeply.
What do we think of the win total that came out?
7.5.
Yeah.
I think they're going to hit the over. I mean,
they better.
I think there's a very good chance they start the season 5-0 going to Dallas.
I think that they should, but will they? I mean, there's been teams in the Big 12 that have Oklahoma teams in the Big 12 over the last couple of years that they should have been this, but they never got there.
I think it helps that, one, they get Auburn on the road early, and that's going to be a really tough game. But I just
there's just so much unknown too about like Auburn
Auburn's
obviously
so up
was
and
not
down.
very good last
No.
year, but they
who's their
you know,
quarterback next year?
It's a great question.
I mean, that's things that I'm like, okay, Auburn is going to be talented, and Hugh Freeze is a pretty good coach. Like, it's going to be a tough game, but at the end of the day, I'm taking Jackson Arnold in that game. And then you turn around, and I think you also get lucky. You get Tennessee early in the year at home, and I don't know how good Tennessee's going to be. I mean, they've got a true
fallen
freshman
off, yeah.
quarterback playing too, or not a true freshman, but a freshman quarterback.
Look good in the bowl game, but what is it? You know,
But what does that really
Can you
mean?
even judge anything on a bowl game nowadays with all the opt outs and everything that comes with that?
And then you look at Texas, and I think Texas is really heading the right direction as a program, but they also lose a lot of guys. I mean, they've got a lot of question marks, just like a lot of other people. And that game's also one that's, I mean, look at this last year. I mean, it's such a toss-up game sometimes.
What job did Tulane's coach take?
Houston,
Okay.
Houston.
Fritz,
Yeah.
yeah, Houston.
The swing,
Guys,
go ahead, Josh.
I was going to ask, as you look at those first five, which one do you think is trickier? To me, obviously, it's Tennessee at home or Auburn on the road. That Auburn game, I don't know. That just feels like the traditional stumbling, but like where OU just finds a way to mess up a game where they're the better team of the two.
Well, and it's Josh, to your point, if you're making me choose between Auburn and Tennessee, I think Auburn's the tougher game just because it's on the road and it's their first real road test with a very young quarterback.
Yeah, I think the young
that's a
quarterback
tough
is
one.
going to make it the toughest. I mean, and you could come out of the season winning 8 games, and if Jackson Arnold got a lot better at the end of the year, then you build towards a lot of excitement for the next year. But, man, you'd hate to waste Stutzman and Bowman's last year.
I don't know that the average OU fan knows how hard it is to go into Auburn and win. Like that is a nuts environment. Like I've heard more than one SEC veteran tell you that's when it's loud, it's the loudest of any place you'll find in the SEC.
What's Auburn's non-conference schedule? Like, are they going to be rolling into that game Auburn 3-0 and it just be rocking?
I want to say I looked at it and it was not daunting if I remember right. I
Auburn,
know I looked at Tennessee's and Tennessee is all.
Yeah, Auburn opens with Alabama A&M August 31st, Cal, New Mexico, Arkansas, OU. So they open Auburn opens the season with 5 consecutive home games. That's crazy.
And
That
guys,
is crazy.
Hugh
And then
Freeze
they
has a
have
track
Georgia the
record
week after OU.
of really building well to a big game, like really maximizing those kind of opportunities.
To me, the games that I look at the schedule and I'm like, that's going to be the difference between 7 wins and 9 wins is Ole Miss, Missouri.
Yeah, the NIL, but new dynasties.
The back end of Oklahoma's schedule, if you want it to be really, really scary, starting with shit like
You
Auburn,
can scare the shit out of yourself if you stare at the
at
schedule long enough.
every one of the games.
Yeah.
Every one of them, including South Carolina. And I know that they haven't been worse shit,
Yeah.
even though we left Shane.
That's in Norman, where Shane says there's nothing else like coming out of the tunnel at Norman.
At Ole Miss,
You remember that
Maine,
last year at
at
SEC Media
Columbia,
Days?
Alabama, at
He said there's
LSU. It's
nothing
insane.
like it when somebody asked him about.
And then he just quickly corrected
He's like,
himself.
oh shit, I'm the coach of South Carolina.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, that's fascinating to me that you get to play Ole Miss and Missouri, 2 teams that have OU fans basically down in the dumps in the offseason.
I do think, though, you look at it, and I'm not saying they're going to beat Alabama, but that game has gotten a little easier with the whole new coaching staff and the adjustments that have to be there. I'm not a buyer on LSU yet. I mean, LSU was good last year, but they got bailed out a lot because they had a damn good quarterback, and
Yeah.
I'm not so sure that they're going to. I mean, they're definitely not going to have somebody as good as Jaden Daniels next year. So I know that game everybody circles those last 2 games, Alabama at home and LSU on the road, is like definitely L's. I wouldn't be shocked if they split those 2 games.
I don't know. Do they have?
I've got LSU number 2 in the SEC next year. I think they're
damn.
gonna be really good.
Josh is like, yeah, no,
Yeah,
George, they're losing.
because I like Garrett Nussmeier. I think Blake Baker's a really good DC. I
Nussmeier's
think
not
he'll
bad.
get them sorted out.
I'll say this,
Brian
though,
Kelly's a damn good football coach too.
But
So
he
he's
only-
a crazy person, but
he only takes you to a certain level. Like, he's not the guy. He's not. I mean, look, anybody that had Ed Orgeron's talent was probably going to win a national championship that year. But I can't see Kelly taking them to a national title. Just doesn't fit. I mean,
I think it's easier to take a LSU to the national title than it is Notre Dame. Or is it?
well, he has the
recent-
ability to kill people in
In
Notre
recent
Dame.
years, it's definitely
Sure, he has
LSU.
that LSU.
I think it's easier to get talent to LSU than Notre Dame.
Oh, 100%.
So
you don't have to.
Your proximity
You
to
can
great
recruit
recruits
in 90 miles
everywhere.
of
Yeah.
back-
well, and it's hard to get kids into Notre Dame because of the whole private school and all that crap.
I think some of that.
I have
some of
talked
that
to
stuff's
I
some
think all
backed
that's
up.
less
Chinese
than
through the years
Yeah, I think like with
that were not at the head of their class.
with Stanford and SC and Notre Dame, I think they've relaxed all those academic standards.
I don't know.
Although
Us Catholics have high.
it's what it is. It's a Catholic thing.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, reset 10 years ago. Don't touch little boys.
God. Coming from another Catholic. So
I can
just
say
wanna
that.
say
I'm
that,
Catholic.
yeah.
I can say that.
That's fine if you like.
Keep your hands to yourself.
Movies with lies in them, like Rudy. Yes.
I love
Rudy
that
is a great movie.
Great movie.
Growing up in the Rudiger household was very similar to growing up in the Radosevich household. But we watched Oklahoma football, not Notre Dame.
And your dad smelted metal.
Yeah, he worked at a mill on the north side of Oklahoma
Was it
City.
Was he not in, like working for Firestone, or was that your relatives?
That was my grandfather.
Okay, your grandfather. Okay. All right.
Bloomington Normal, shout out.
I think that's all we need to really say about the staff changes and NIL and that for now. I mean, obviously,
It is going to be interesting to see, like, outside of, like, obviously Curtis or Woody, like, are they going to try to develop, like, will the recruiting office in a way become
an NIL recruiting transfer
not
portal.
necessarily like that, but like, are they building like a complete different division within the football program?
I think they are. I think that's kind of the impression that I get.
Yeah.
You have like, if you want to say it's a general manager, not that they have one, but it all as a collective, it's like having a personnel department,
Right.
a general manager's, department.
And I would say too, and you said this in your
Making
post.
hand motions.
You said this in your post on the board, Carey. Like, don't think of it as an NFL GM.
Yeah,
It's
don't
not
look at
an
it through
NFL
the NFL eyes.
It's
or
not an
lenses.
NFL GM. I mean, NFL GM is
All encompassing.
correct. That's not what this is.
All right. Look, we're going to have the stickball deal. We've got family business coming up. We're going to shoot that here in just a little bit tonight. May have more of that administrative feel to the family business podcast. We're still trying to sort out exactly who's going to be our guest. It might be a former player. It might be somebody that's close to Brent Venables. Where I'm guessing that they're going to back out.
Yeah.
I think everybody's running scared right now in that office to talk to anybody in the media.
Yeah, I think it might be the former NFL player tonight.
Yeah.
But maybe at some point we'll get some admins in here for that.
No, that's
show.
a big goal. Is with the family business, we want to get people that are in the athletic department that can talk about what they do, and maybe even Sooner Club people, or just different aspects of the university. Because of course, family business, Joe Castiglione, his business is athletic administration. So, I think he's even kind of helping us out a little bit, kind of get some guests and saying who would be good and not. So, really excited about where that thing is getting ready to go, and I won't tell you who, but I am currently working on a player podcast. We have a handshake agreement, and I'm drawing up the contracts now.
It's going to be awesome.
We'll tell you more about that coming up soon. So, and the construction continues. I got the quote on the doors and windows today, Josh. I won't share it with you. Let's just say my own
I don't need to
personal
cry
savings
in
is going
front
to
of
take a
everybody.
hit.
That's not what I want.
It's-
I will say, I know we kind of started on recruiting.
Yeah.
Just real quick, Carey. I
Yeah,
promise.
no.
I know we kind of started on recruiting.
Please.
For people that didn't get their fill, like, watch the recruiting report. Like, we went for 50 minutes yesterday talking
About 42.
everything from Oklahoma's new presence in Arkansas, Houston. Talked about the junior day that's coming up. Guys like Jonathan Hatton, the big 2026 running back commitment. So there's going to be plenty of guys, and I'm still confirming names. I've had a few guys literally while we're recording the podcast here. Okay, I am coming. I'm not coming. So there's a lot of different. There's still a lot of movement happening, and I would expect kind of like we've seen, somewhere between 15, 20 visitors, a lot of elite guys, almost exclusively guys OU has offered.
And
so
we'll be at the Under Armour
there's going to be
event.
plenty more coming.
We'll be at the Under Armour event the very next day, right?
Yeah. So we'll have cameras in the face as many of these guys as we can and get real. I think it's kind of a unique opportunity. We don't usually get a chance to talk to them right after a visit like that, and really, and get. It's so much better when people can see them and hear them and kind of get a better feel for what they're actually, relaying rather than just kind of reading it. And sometimes I think that can fall a little short of really conveying how they felt.
Yeah, it's a great recruiting report. We're even talking about adding something on Fridays, and that's going to coincide a little bit with the scoop, which sounded like a great idea when you guys were kind of forming it this morning. So a lot of exciting stuff. We're not slowing down. We're just we're continuing to build, and new studios, they're progressing. I'm happy with how it's progressing. So
We could probably talk
hopefully-
some spring football next week too.
definitely. We'll get more into that. I don't know the next time we'll talk to anybody from football.
No, but
Until spring practice
we do know
starts.
we're a couple weeks away from them getting going. So
And it sounds like it will be kind of that early practice a week, go on spring break, come back. So
yeah,
which Brent didn't do last. He hadn't done the first 2 years,
I think it's because it's spring break.
It's later than
It's
usual.
later this year than usual.
But doesn't mess with the Masters, so Eddie's happy.
Absolutely. I'll still go if somebody wants to invite me. I mean, I could probably open up my
When is
weekend
when is
first
the
week of
Masters?
April.
Is it the week
It's like the week before.
the
Yeah,
spring
April
game?
13th.
Yeah,
Is that right? Yeah. I think
spring
that's
game's April 20th. Yeah.
All right.
Players Championships in a couple months or a couple weeks.
Oh, that's exciting news about Jack Nicklaus being involved with the Corn Fair event.
Yeah,
here in
that'll be
Norman.
cool. I don't really know what to expect from it. Jack's getting a little bit older, but that'll be cool.
Will he just tee off?
I have
Or will
no
he play?
idea. I have no idea. I didn't really read the email that was sent out, but the way that
Do they call that? What do they call that when the Masters they have the former champs come and hit the first shot? Ceremonially.
just the ceremonial starter.
Okay.
Starters.
That's one of sports' finest
It's pretty cool.
kind of pregame things.
Pretty cool.
All right. Anything else, guys?
My hands are better.
They look worse, but they're feeling better.
Yeah, they're scarred up. They're pretty good.
I gave George
No more
one of my
gloves.
watches today.
Yeah, he did. It's awesome. Sweet watch. Thanks, Carey.
It's not in
We're
Eddie's
coming up. We're
category.
coming up on my 1 year anniversary
Should
at the
sell
company.
You got a lot more work to do to earn Eddie's watch.
I can do that. And Eddie's worked hard. People don't realize Eddie's.
Build a fucking empire.
Yeah, he did.
Kidding.
Well, when we get you your new studio, you'll be Oklahoma Scott Van Pelt.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Awesome. Let's do it.
All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com.